Welcome to the Career Ready podcast. Learn about resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, interviewing, and all the things you need to be career ready with the Career Services Center at College of DuPage. I'm one of your hosts for today's episode, Rebecca Harrington.
And I'm your other host, Jordan Rembrecht.
Today, we're diving into a topic that every graduating student will face, but many don't feel fully prepared for: employee benefits. When that first job offer arrives, the salary tends to get all the attention, but the benefits package, that's often where the real long-term value is hiding. Understanding health insurance, retirement plans, PTO, wellness perks, and everything in between can make a huge difference when deciding which offer is right for you. To help us break all of this down, we're thrilled to have Angelina Ragano, a Senior HR Generalist in the electronics manufacturing industry, joining us. Angelina works directly with new hires and knows exactly what early career candidates should be paying attention to when reviewing benefits and what questions they should be asking during interviews. Whether you're graduating soon or you're supporting students through the job search process, this episode will give you the practical guidance to make benefits less confusing and more empowering. So let's jump in. Welcome, Angelina. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing? I'm excited to be on today.
Great. All right. Anything you want to tell? I gave a little intro there, but is there anything else you want to share about your background before we dive into the questions?
Yeah, so I am a COD alum. It was very exciting thinking about that. It's been 7+ years since I've been on campus, but I've had the pleasure and opportunity to come back for other areas before, so it's been exciting. But yes, I did a 3+1 program with COD, and after I graduated, I landed an internship that turned into a full-time experience, and I've been with that organization since then. So I'm really excited to be coming back and doing this podcast because I think COD is just nothing but opportunities. So it's very exciting.
Wonderful. It's so great to have a COD alum, and one of my role at COD is to work with internships. So I love hearing that an internship helped you get your full-time opportunity. All right. Well, let's start us off. Can you share just a quick overview of what quote unquote employee benefits may be included for full-time employees?
Yes. So when you think of benefits, a lot of people probably immediately think about healthcare insurance. So things like medical, dental, and vision. But the overall benefits package goes beyond just health insurance. It also includes things like financial wellness, mental wellness, time off. So that'll be included with like paid time off and vacation time and sick time or paid parental leave. And then it kind of also includes the unique benefits that a company might choose to offer. And those are kind of ways that companies could offer unique benefits to stand above what other companies are offering, make them unique and have a competitive advantage. So it's an overall package that an employer can offer to you. And then you as a new hire or an employee can choose, okay, what do I do and don't want? And it's exciting because then there's a lot of options, hopefully, at the organization that you're going to that can kind of help support you at where you are in your current life, what you need right now, coverage wise.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's a lot out there to consider.
Yes, for sure.
Angelina, can you tell us a bit, why are benefits such an important part of the total compensation package, especially for new graduates who are entering the workforce?
Yes. So a lot of times, when you think about the total compensation package, how we described before, we have such a focus on salary, but benefits are a cost to the employer. So what the employer chooses to add shows their commitment to the employees to help them remain competitive and show that they're focusing on what employees' well-beings. So for graduates, when, you're considering what benefits an employer is offering to you, kind of how I mentioned, depending on what stage of life you're in right now or where you plan to maybe be in the next 5 years, you want to consider that what the company offers to you and what they pay to offer to you is part of the total compensation package, because that's considered a cost to employ you. So then not only is it your salary, it's includes what benefits you do and do not utilize when working there.
Awesome. Thank you for at least, kind of highlighting the importance of it before we kind of get into the more granular pieces of, what those benefits components could include.
Yeah, and I think that's super important to think about too, the employer costs. It made me, I think like kind of what I took from what you said is a little bit like it shows what they consider to be important. And that can be, like you said, a competitive part of comparing two different offers out there.
Yes, because insurance can be very costly for companies to offer, and how much they maybe choose to subsidize, which means like they'll cover this portion of your health insurance, which means you pay this much per month or per check, for example. How much they cover also needs to be considered, because that shows also what they're willing to contribute for their employees. And with the, rise of healthcare, companies that step up and cover more of those costs is something to consider as well.
Yeah. So let's continue with the health insurance then. So what are types of health insurance plans that new grads commonly might see out there? So when they're, again, you don't need to necessarily go super deep dive, but just give us a basic overview of some of those different ones out there.
Yeah. So health insurance, we're going to be talking about like medical, dental, and vision. Like those are the, full body coverage that you're looking for. And medical is where there are more options available. So like the standard plans that you can kind of see are things like a PPO plan, an HMO plan, and those are the networks that, are covered for medical. But then there's different plans depending on those networks. So like if we use PPO, for example, PPO is the largest network in the United States. And those are what doctors, hospitals, or clinics have agreed to work with the insurance carriers. And then there's an HMO, which is a smaller network of doctors. But amongst those networks, I don't want to confuse it all, but there's different plans. So if you're in the PPO network, the plan can utilize that network, but the plans can differ because the plans are built for what type of medical needs you need. So sometimes there's a plan that has a higher deductible, and sometimes there's a health savings account tied to it. And those plans might be best for an individual with maybe not a lot of healthcare needs, or there's plans that are with lower deductibles. And those, usually cost a little bit more to be on that plan, but then those plans are good for individuals that have more healthcare needs. So it kind of varies, and companies tend to offer different types of plans and networks to meet the needs of the employees, because there is no one size fits all plan for employees, because everyone has different healthcare needs, and that changes, throughout your life. And, a lot of the times if you're post grad, if maybe you're still under 26 and covered on your parents' plan, like you're maybe not utilizing health insurance that often, or maybe something happens and your healthcare needs change. And then you do need to start looking at a plan that has more coverage, which means the insurance carrier pays for more things and hopefully your out of pocket isn't as expensive. Then you want to kind of look at plans that offer something like that. So all in all, companies try usually to offer several different plans. So then that way you as the employee have that flexibility to choose one that matches your needs better.
Thank you. So I know that, you make a good point of evaluating, the plans. Everyone has their own unique needs. And if it's the first time looking at insurance, or even if maybe this is maybe the second or third offer you ever gotten, or maybe the first time you're enrolling in your own health insurance, there could be a lot of terminology there. So for someone who's maybe never, had their own insurance before, what are some of those key terms or features that they should focus on when comparing plans? I know you mentioned a couple good ones before, like deductible, but any ones that people should really be looking out for?
Yes, for sure. And insurance companies never make it easy. Yes, I was going to say, the insurance companies never make it easy. And then sometimes you look at the plan document and you're like, whoa, this is a lot to look at. So yes, let's start with so as we kind of talked about, like network, like a PPO versus an HMO, that's what doctors and hospitals or clinics have agreed to work with your insurance carrier to basically have your coverage needs covered, which means like they're willing to help pay for some of the costs depending on what you're seeking. So that's just the network. But then in your individual plan, this means how much will your insurance carrier help pay? But they're not just going to pay everything. Like if we use Blue Cross Blue Shield, for example, they're not going to pay everything. It's going to depend on those terminologies like deductibles and copays and coinsurances. So usually you start with a deductible. And what a deductible means is how much you as an individual have to pay before, if we use Blue Cross Blue Shield as an example, before Blue Cross Blue Shield kicks in. So let's say your deductible is $1,000. That means you, whenever in that plan year, are going to a doctor, you will pay up to $1,000 before Blue Cross Blue Shield says, okay, now we'll help pay for your insurance coverage needs. So you pay $1,000, and let's say that bill was $1,500 and you paid $1,000. So now, okay, we're going to help kick in and start covering for that cost. And then how much they cover depends on what service you were getting treated for. So sometimes if it's like, if you were hospitalized, Blue Cross Blue Shield will say, okay, we'll pay then 90% and you pay 10%. And that 10%, that's going to be your coinsurance. And then let's say it's just a common cold and you just went to an immediate care and you're going to the immediate care and they just say, okay, there's a copay of $50. That copay is something that you pay every time for whatever service if they deem that there's a copay for that service. And then with all of those different costs added up together, so your deductible, your coinsurances, and those copays, those all add up and start funneling in together to something called an out-of-pocket max. That's like the worst case scenario. You hope that you don't have to hit your out-of-pocket max, but let's say you had a year with a lot of health insurance needs or something unfortunately happened to you and maybe you were hospitalized. That out-of-pocket max kind of protects you as an individual to not have to pay so much. So there's like a cap. So once you hit that out-of-pocket max for that plan year, you don't have to pay anything more, and your insurance carrier continues to cover the costs if it's, a covered procedure, something that you're experiencing.
Yeah, I think so that's a lot, right?
Yes.
But I think so just okay, so this is what I take from it. Let me know if I'm missing anything. So number one, certainly think about network as far as that's which doctors and hospitals are included. So making sure like, hey, if you have a doctor that you've been going to that you really like, you can often go take a look and see, hey, are they a part of this PPO network or are they a part of the HMO network or which PPO network? The other part is that deductible. Some plans might be cheaper each pay period, but have a higher deductible that you have to pay, which if you're relatively healthy, might be the best option for you, right? Versus if you're going to have to pay. And then the other part is that out-of-pocket maximum. I think that's like a super big part of it too, is that, again, if you're someone that knows you need a lot of health care, maybe you want to find one that has a lower out-of-pocket maximum, or at least is something that makes sense to you to do. And like you said, it all can just depend on you and your needs and where you are in your life.
Right, for sure. Yeah, perfectly said. Because yes, depending on where you are, you want to look at all of those cost differences. Because if you're relatively healthy, then yeah, maybe you could pick a plan that costs you less per paycheck because hopefully you're not going to have to utilize it. A lot of the times, the ones that cost less per paycheck are going to be the ones with the higher deductible, the higher out-of-pocket maximum. And then the ones that maybe you pay a little bit more per paycheck, those are going to be the plans that offer a lower deductible, sometimes no deductible, and a lower out-of-pocket max. But those cost more per paycheck. But then depending on your healthcare needs, you could try to look at what your cost could be for an entire year. And then that way you kind of can do the math to see what makes more sense. And I know it's always confusing, but you always want to try to think about it where you are this year and kind of knowing that there is flexibility, that a lot of companies do offer that annual enrollment periods. And then every year you can review what you are currently enrolled in, perhaps make a change, unless you had something called a qualifying life event, which we don't have to get too into the details of now. But then you at least know that you're usually not locked in forever, even though a year is a long length of time.
That's a great point. So don't panic, if for some reason you pick a plan and then it turns out to not be perfect, like you said, you can reevaluate and make a change the next year.
Yep.
Yeah. So you mentioned vision and dental, right? So can you just talk a little bit about what they typically cover and just how that's a little bit different than the health insurance part?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, vision and dental will be carved out. They're totally separate plans. So you'll really, for vision care needs, there's usually companies might only offer one, maybe rarely two. And those kind of plans are, they're pretty cut and dry. They'll kind of cover you maybe one time a year to get new lenses, maybe once or twice, depending, to get lenses. They might say, okay, you can get a new pair of lenses every 2 years, sometimes every year. It'll cover like your things like an annual eye exam. And then it covers up to a certain benefit amount. So I always tell my employees, if you're feeling fancy and you're going in and you want like the high end glasses, like you like to have like a name brand pair of glasses, sure, you can buy those vision frames, but your insurance will still say, okay, we're only willing to cover a frame allowance up to 500, for example. And then you're left to pay the rest of it. There are plans that cover, if you have contacts, sometimes they don't allow you to have an allowance for both. Sometimes they do. It all varies. And then I always say to our employees, regardless if you need contacts or glasses, please still get your annual eye exam. So it's still worthwhile to maybe enroll in vision insurance, because if you were to go to a vision doctor with no insurance, sometimes the cost of what they would have you pay without insurance, you might have it less expensive by getting it through your work. So either way, get your eye exam. And then dental plans are a little bit different as well. They kind of mirror health plans, where sometimes your dental plans also, they have networks that you're going to be a part of. So there's dental networks in dental PPO or dental HMO. And just like medical plans, the type of plan you select should be based on your dental needs. So if you're someone whose teeth are going great and maybe you just go for your annual, your cleanings and your exams, then, a PPO plan is something where, you have the broad choice of dentist to go to, but a lot of the times there's still a benefit maximum. So if you ever had to get a major service done, like a crown or a root canal, your insurance company will probably still have certain amounts that they're willing to pay. Sometimes for major services, they'll only cover up to 50% of that cost, but then there's still a maximum that they're willing to pay per plan year. And then just like medical, there's an HMO network sometimes, and sometimes that might have lower cost options for you, but then the range of dentists and then in that network might be a little bit smaller or more difficult to find a dentist. But then sometimes those plans don't have a maximum. So those plans could be good for individuals that maybe have to have major services done and they know it's going to be an expensive year for their dental care. So once again, if you can foresee any of the dental care needs, medical as well, you'll want to try to think about that when selecting a plan. And then if you're anyone like me, I had to get Invisalign. And as an adult, I had braces as a child. I needed Invisaligns as an adult. I had to look into see which plans offered orthodontia coverage, because sometimes those plans only cover orthodontia for children. So you want to see if it includes adults. And my plan thankfully did. But those are just things to consider.
Yeah, definitely. And would you say like the cost typically for vision and dental is less, right, than health insurance typically?
Yes, very much so. Like you'll pay a lot less. And the reason you pay a lot less is because you'll want to look at what the plans are in terms of how much they're willing to pay per year. A lot of times dental plans, they'll only pay up to maybe $1,500, $2K. They vary with the size of the company and what they offer, but sometimes that they don't cover that much in a plan year. So it's less expensive for you every check, but it depends of what kind of services you're needing. But yes, much less expensive per check.
Thank you. It's always good to know about the coverage for, some of the routine checkups or exams, but also to thinking ahead for some of those life events that you can maybe anticipate. So thank you for covering that. And the open enrollment. I love that added benefit, that thing that you covered. So kind of moving away from the insurance, but still sticking with some like health related benefits. We know that some employers offer things like employee assistance programs or EAPs or mental health resources. What should new grads know about these?
Yes. So employee assistance programs are a great program. A lot of companies offer those. A lot of the times when you utilize an EAP as an employee, companies will offer up to maybe 3 sessions, 5 sessions for free, depending on different needs. So this could be for mental health needs. Sometimes if there's a past member of your family that passed away and you need grievance services, they do financial services. And these are kind of like short-term needs. And they'll cover up to 3 sessions, for example. And then after that, if you needed more than 3 sessions, they can help, link you towards a longer term solution. But then those 3 sessions would be the ones that the company says, okay, here they're free, they're confidential, and you can utilize those services. So they're kind of as needs come. So a lot of companies offer that. But if you're an individual that maybe already has mental care services already in place, maybe you're already speaking with a therapist or a counselor, a lot of times an EAP won't cover existing services that you're seeing. But a new trending benefit that companies might be starting to offer are those paid mental health services to kind of cover those costs of existing costs. So those are just some things to consider. But EAP programs are great for those, in-demand needs. And a lot of the times companies are offering those, and they'll remind employees if they learn of something that maybe the person is going through or having difficulty managing on their own, and they'll remind them that these services exist. And a lot of the times, companies will include those services for family members or direct people within your household to extend those services for their utilization as well.
I often think of EAPs too, like you said, as like connection point. So, maybe something happened to a parent and you need to find like a care place for them. The EAP might help connect you with resources to help you select a care place. Or like you said, you realize you need mental health services, they can help you find those services or give you some of that, like you said, initial assistance. Sometimes they can even help you find a divorce lawyer, or you know what I mean? Like it's just like you said, it's just they kind of almost give you that right away help that then can help you find further help after that.
Yes, I sometimes tell the employees, like, hey, instead of like maybe going directly to Google, if you contact this number, they can help with local resources, and they they know how that resource is rated, and they've had experience maybe working directly with them. So I always say, when you don't always know where to turn for all of these different things that are going on in your life and your family's life, don't forget that this is available for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, let's move away from kind of that healthcare realm and move on to financial and retirement benefits. So many employers offer retirement plans like a 401k. What should new grads understand about employer matching, vesting? I don't know. We always hear all these words. So whatever you want to share with us is just a general overview of what is a 401k and employer matching, all of that.
Yes, absolutely. So you'll always hear the first piece of advice is it's never too soon to start saving for your retirement. So if a company is offering a 401k plan, just get started right away. What that'll do is things to look out for. And this is part of that total compensation package that we were talking about. You want to see what the company is going to, match your contribution with, and how much the company does differs between every company. Some companies do an exact match, like if you do 3%, we'll match 3%. Sometimes companies say, in order for you to receive our 3% match, you need to contribute 5%. And sometimes it's a flat percent and the company won't increase it. Sometimes companies say, okay, every year, or if they do like an incentive one to get, longer tenures, like you work with a company longer, and when you hit these milestone anniversaries, will increase by a percentage. So sometimes what the company is willing to offer is either a flat amount. Sometimes it's dependent on how much you contribute as an individual. And then that's something to consider, because how much that company gives you is a really big tool, and it's something that the companies often offer to remain competitive and go against the industry competitors, and it's something you want to consider. Another term that we talked about is that vesting period. And what a vesting period means is usually sometimes companies there's a certain length of time that you have to work with that employer before the contributions or matches that they give are available to you. So let's say 5 years. You must work with the company 5 years for your balance to be available to you should you leave the company and go to another company. Sometimes if you leave less than 5 years, they might say, okay, only 25% is available to you. And they'll break it down to you of how much years you have to be there. Some companies don't have a vesting period, which is a really big thing. That's a really like a difference in a plan. It's unique and it's a competitive edge. But you'll want to know those vesting periods, because a lot of times they do use those for retention tactics, because they want you to work with the organization longer. So sometimes they want you to work a certain length of time in order for those funds to be available for you. So that's something that, that should be available in the plan documents that they share with you. And if it's not, you should ask.
I appreciate you giving that overview, and I agree. Always never too early to start investing, and especially up to that match,
Yes.
Another kind of more, a little bit less long-term a financial benefit, but something that, is maybe especially, recent graduates may want to participate in once they enter the workforce, maybe something like tuition reimbursement. Could you explain how that, could look for someone that maybe wants to go and pursue a master's or other continuing education?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times companies, they're trying to get those post grads into their organizations because they want to, start you while you're still green and have all the opportunities to grow with them. So a lot of the times too, that's what you're looking for as an individual, and they know that. So they'll add that benefit to get you into the door. A lot of the times they might have a certain length of time you must work there in order to be eligible for a tuition reimbursement program or continuing education. Or they might say, like, in order to be eligible, the education that you're seeking must help you with your current career at this company. So this will help you grow in your current role or could lead to further advancement opportunities, and will cover up to this much amount. And a lot of the times too, it could be for masters, it could be for continuing educations, but sometimes they offer things like a certificate program where maybe you're not trying to get another degree, but you just want to get a certificate under your belt, and that could help you in your current role or help you advance with the company, and they'll cover the cost for that. A lot of the times how much they cover varies throughout, different organizations. And the IRS does have a limit of how much it could be where it's not taxable as an earning to you as an individual. So sometimes how much the company offers to you varies as well. So the max right now, I think, is $5,250. So a lot of times organizations might offer up to that amount because it's then not a taxable benefit, but above that, you might end up paying taxes. So we won't get into the payroll side of it, but it's just things to consider too, because you'll want to know what your options are. And then sometimes too, if that is per calendar year, it's something that could be spread apart as you're continuing the courses. And then sometimes companies, like if you're, doing different programs, they might pay for the class entirely or allow a digital class. There's so many different options, but it's always good to think about, because if you're, wanting to get into the workforce right away, but you know that you want to continue your education, if an organization can help pay for it, then that is a great thing to look for.
Such a good point. Like it might be worth taking slightly less in a salary if they're going to help you pay for this degree or certificate that you want.
Right.
Yeah. And so something also, because I've had this happen with employees too, is that sometimes they will pay for it ahead of time, but oftentimes it's a reimbursement. And especially if you're getting something where there's a grade attached, hey, it does matter if you pass the class, if they'll pay for
Right.
it.
Yes, that is a great point. Yeah, they will ask for your transcript sometimes, so you still got to do good. It's not completely
Yeah.
free. You got to put in all the work and effort still.
All right, excellent. Okay, so those are some good financial benefits. Let's talk about something that everybody loves, which is paid time off. What are some of the most common PTO, paid time off structures out there?
Yes. Yeah. So we all want to have a good balance and want to know what days that we can take off. And just like every benefit, how much the company offers to you varies. So paid time off, the most common structures, sometimes paid time off can be all encompassing. So they're going to say, we're going to give you X amount of days, and that covers for all of the various reasons. You're taking vacation, you got sick or ill and you need time off, you're just taking a random day. Sometimes it's all encompassing, it's an all in one bucket of days. Some organizations separate that out and they say, okay, there's X amount of days for vacation, X amount of days for sick leave. And then those days could also vary of like, do they roll over every year or not? Is there a certain length of time you have to use them by? Like what are your options with the different pools? And organizations all kind of, handle that differently. And then on top of paid time off, what a company offers you, there are sometimes state, laws that come into play. Of certain states will say, okay, like you're eligible for this amount of paid time off, depending on what, it could be for specifically like paid leave for if you're sick or if you need time off, following a birth. That's something we could talk about a little bit too, but the classic most common is like vacation, sick, and those types of time off.
Thank you, Angelina. And I know that you talked about, kind of some of those more like planned occurrences. Like we know that we're probably going to want to go on vacation at least once in the year, or we're going to maybe need to take a sick day. But what about for maybe some of those more longer term leaves? Like what should new grads know about FMLA, or for those who live in Illinois, the Paid Leave Workers Act?
Yes, definitely. So FMLA is a federal law. It allows, organizations that are of a size to offer, the employees to take 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave for various reasons. Some of those reasons could be birth of a child, to care for an immediate family member, to care for your own serious health condition. But there's stipulations. You usually have to work for a company for 12 months or the equivalent hours in order to be eligible for FMLA. And once again, FMLA is 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave. So what that means is if you have to be off of work for those various reasons, you've worked at that company for, the 1 year or equivalent amount of hours, you could take up to 12 weeks off. If you take off those 12 weeks in a one length of time continuously, or sometimes you need to take it here and there, and that's called intermittent FMLA. But basically what that does, and the reason why it's called job protected leave, is you have to be off of work, and if you qualify for FMLA, when you come back from that leave, your company has to offer you the same or equivalent level of role upon your return. And because it's unpaid, sometimes there are states that are starting to offer paid FMLA. Sometimes companies supplement the unpaid time and have paid leave options available for you. It's something that's new that companies are offering, but at least hey, if something happens and I've worked at this company for the that eligibility window. If something happens to me, at least, there's that 12 weeks to fall back on. And then sometimes, with this, as we go back to like the state specific leaves, Illinois, for example, Illinois started offering mandatory paid leave. And the way that works is that you accrue hours for however many hours you get, how many hours you work, you get X amount of paid leave hours. And how those hours work is, you could be able to take leave in a smaller increment of time, a smaller notice period, and those hours are available to you. How the company offers them to you could also vary. What happens with those hours year over year, if I use them or not. That all of that is available. If you ever were to look up Illinois law, that'll explain that to you. But even in the city of Chicago started having different paid leave laws because it's even unique in Chicago. So as an employee, you always kind of want to research what's out there. It's always interesting for us HR folks. We find it interesting, but you as an employee should also know what you are, legally required to receive. And then also know that there are those certain length of times that you have to work for an organization, or sometimes the size of an organization matters too, if they're required to offer certain things.
Okay, let's move on to maybe some other types of perks that you might get in your job offer. So what are some of the workplace perks, or sometimes we call it soft benefits, that are becoming more common? So maybe like hybrid work, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the workplace perks, sometimes they even call them lifestyle benefits. There's many different ways to call it, but a lot of the times it's pretty standard now to expect a company to offer medical, dental, vision in a 401k plan. So like that's kind of like, hey, we expect that now. And if you're not offering it, that's like, whoa. So now companies, to remain competitive, they are adding those workplace perks or the soft benefits or the lifestyle benefits to help, attract different types of employees. And some of those benefits are where companies can be unique in their offerings. So I always find it really fun to research what those benefits are. And like I said, it kind of creates a well-rounded benefits package because once again, everybody comes into an organization with different needs, a different stage of their life sometimes. So one of the things that I was thinking about automatically was things like paid parental leave and adoption assistance. Because let's say you're in the family planning stage of your life and, hey, I know FMLA only covers 12 weeks of unpaid leave. Is there a plan that helps cover while I need to be off of work? For mothers, sometimes that could fall under short-term disability, but that only covers sometimes up to 8 weeks. So what about the other time that I need to be off to bond with my child? Or, hey, I'm, the father and I don't get any paid benefits. Is paid parental leave available to me? Adoption assistance. So that's kind of like family planning benefits. But then there's also like lifestyle benefits. And those are things like fitness reimbursement. So like, hey, I go to the gym every month, so I'm going to get reimbursed for, doing a healthy lifestyle. Sometimes organizations have partnerships with specific gyms. So then if you go to that gym, you pay a lot less than you would if you were to come in off the street to pay for the gym. Hybrid work, I feel like, is becoming the new norm, the new standard. A lot of people go into an organization, they're like, what's your hybrid schedule? And that varies as well. It could be, dependent on your role, if that's available to you or not. How many days is also could be varying onto your role or to the organization. And then if you are offered hybrid work, sometimes they're like, okay, here's a home office stipend and go buy that ergonomic desk or chair for your home and get the, stuff that you need, the keyboard and mouse and all of that stuff. And then even more, I don't think it's niche, I think it's fun, but pet insurance exists. And you want to get your pet covered because it's so expensive to take them to the vet. That exists. And then the last, there's so much more, but one of the last ones that I've kind of seen trending, as I've done benefit research, is there's things called lifestyle spending accounts. So this could be where you get like wellness stipends, or you get a certain amount per month or per year, and you can have a flexibility of options of what you spend that money on, and they call it a lifestyle spending account. So it kind of, allows you that flexibility. So there's so much out there, which is good to know, because then if you're making decisions between, different employers, and that might, be more valuable to you, because you want to know, like, hey, I'm at this stage in my life and maybe I'm not using, this plan or this coverage as much, but I want those little things. I want those little soft benefit options. And that might make me very happy to know that the company is willing to offer those things. And that helps companies stand out from others when they offer those things. So there's a lot to consider. So make sure that when you look at those offerings, to see what are they doing that is unique, because it shows that the company cares and they are trying to make a well-rounded benefits package for you.
No, I like hearing about those lifestyle benefits, and I think especially someone newer entering the workforce, that could be really exciting. But I always want to bring it back to what is important to you. So what do you think a candidate should be weighing when they're weighing those soft benefits or those lifestyle benefits versus those core benefits when they're really considering that job offer?
Right, for sure. So I know, like, all of those soft benefits, they're fun, and that might be like, something that differs the company, but you do want to make sure that the companies are offering solid core benefits, because if and when you really need to utilize them, you don't want to be, left with like a plan that's not going to help you pay for those different coverage needs. And you want to see that an organization cares about the well-rounded package of it. So if you're making, deciding between those and considering what's going to be something that is going to get you in the door versus not, it still depends on where you are in your life and what you value the most. But then you want to know that, hey, in 5 years, if I'm still with this organization, your needs could change. So you want to think about where you are today, but then also where are you in 5 years, and what might change at that time. You want to make sure that you are, joining an organization that is going to continually maybe update their benefits and show that they're caring for their employees and what they're offering to them.
Excellent. And just kind of continuing with that. So when a new grad receives their offer letter, what should they look for in the benefits section just to make sure they really understand the package? Maybe red flags they should watch out for, questions they could ask?
Yeah, definitely. Immediately, I think about the waiting period. Some companies, they do it differ. Some companies are like, on your first date of hire, you are eligible for these benefits. Sometimes they make you wait. You have to work here for 30 calendar days. Sometimes it's 90. Sometimes it's 6 months. And you want to know, like, what is that waiting period? Because that length of time, like, it's maybe not as common, but it's really important to know. And that should be available for you. And in the benefits package, like, that should be clear as day. What is your waiting period? You also want to be able to look at that benefit guide and see those big terms we talked about again. What are the deductibles? What are the copays? How much am I paying per check? You should be able to anticipate what the true costs of all of your different plan options are. And when we go back to health insurance again, you want a company that offers multiple options, because there is, you need that flexibility of like, hey, there's not one medical plan that is going to meet the needs of everyone. So a company should be offering at least 2 to 3 different options for you. And then if there's like other benefits that are pretty like those standard core benefits that you see they're not offering, like 401k, life insurance, or voluntary benefits that you can sign up for, those are things that at this point, those should be core benefits and they should be available for you. So kind of altogether, just being able to see those information. They should be able to share benefits guides with you if you're a candidate, because that is a very big deciding factor. So when you are considering a company, if that information is not already available to you, if you ask the recruiter, they should be able to supplement and provide that information to you.
I think that's Oh, that is so important that when you are a lot of times, even when you go for an interview, they may share their benefit package. And to me, that's always a green flag, right? Because you're obviously
Right.
very confident in your benefits.
Yes, it should be something they are so proud. If it's not already on the job posting and on their website, then like yeah, they should be very proud because as I've been saying, it's a competitive edge, and your employer wants to have a competitive edge. They want to attract and retain you, and their benefits package is one of those factors. And they should be ready to be loud and proud about it and make sure that they offer something great for you that you are excited about.
Question that, some of our listeners may have, are benefits negotiable? If they are, they're ones that tend to have a little bit more flexibility than others.
I'd say some are probably negotiable, some are not. A lot of the times those like health insurance plans, there are plan rules that companies have to follow. Like here's what kind of employee do you need to be eligible? You have to be a full-time employee working X amount of hours or longer. And that's a plan rule. The company has to follow it. So that really wouldn't be negotiable. Some things that could be negotiable, for example, is like that paid time off because let's say the longer you're working in your career, like sometimes companies have it like the longer you work here, the more PTO you get. So let's say you're changing careers and then you're like, hey, I'm used to having X amount of days off and now I'm coming to a company with little or less than, then sometimes that could be something that is negotiable. So I always say it doesn't hurt to ask, but then you might be met with like, hey, sorry, no, this is as a plan rule. We have to follow it for all eligible employees.
Okay, well then we are coming up to the end here. So just a last couple questions here, which is, is there anything that you think new grads overlook when they're reviewing benefit packages, and just any other last piece of advice that you have for our students here?
Yes, definitely. I think you're going to want to know the amounts because a lot of the times if you're going on a career post or a listing, they'll say we have all of these great benefits. We have time off and we have 401k. So I hope the biggest thing that you take away is okay, you have this, but like what is the benefit? What's the amount? What how much does it cost to be on your health insurance plans? How much PTO do I get? What are the stipulations with the PTO? Do I have to use it by a certain amount of time? Does the amount increase over time? You'll want to make sure that you know like the nitty gritty details of it, and you'll learn as you go like what other companies are offering. But you just want to know that like they're gonna make it look all fun online, but getting to the core details and seeing what they're offering is going to be really important. And then, when you're getting an offer letter, you'll want to make sure, like the offer letter, of course, is going to state your standard things like your salary and things like that. But what other items are, I don't want to say guaranteed, but I'm eligible for as an employee and all other employees are eligible for, and making sure that you're aware of that because sometimes if you're not in the know of the benefits, like if you didn't read that benefits guide or maybe they didn't have a full-fledged orientation and you're not sure what's available to you, and then you miss out on those opportunities. So either as and you're in the offer letter review period, but then also when you join the company, just make sure that you're aware of what's there and what you should be eligible for so you don't miss out on it.
And is it okay to ask questions?
Oh, yes. Yes, you should. If it's not the recruiter, sometimes the recruiter is not always like fully in the know to say, hey, is there someone in benefits or someone in HR that I can ask questions to? And then sometimes if you have like a more unique healthcare need and be like, hey, like, is there anyone I could talk to confidentially about something that I want to review? And then that way that you don't feel like you need to tell that to the recruiter, talk to someone who's more of an expert who can help you out. And that way, your coverage needs are, and things like that. So always ask. And that would be a good green flag is how ready they are to be like, yes, let me get you connected with this person who will help you with all of these questions. That would be a green flag. And that's how it should be.
Excellent. Oh, so good. Oh, this has been amazing, so helpful. I hope that the listeners find it as helpful as I did.
Yeah.
Yes, we appreciate your time. We really do.
I could talk benefits all day. So I hope so too. And I hope none of the terms were too confusing, but yes, just it's all in all, just look into it and know that you're valued.
Awesome. So thanks to all of our listeners, and special thanks again to Angelina Ragano for joining us on the podcast. We hope you have enjoyed learning more about employment benefits. Remember, if you have a question for us, you can submit it to careerpodcast@cod.edu or on social media at COD Career Center, and you may hear the answer in a future episode.